This is a story that happened to me in 1996, 19 years ago. The real event happened 20 years ago in 1995. But there I was in 1996, and it happened in Nepal. When I was back in Nepal in 1996, I'd gone up to a peak called Gokyo Peak, which is a wonderful place to see Mount Everest. Everest is the largest mountain on Earth, but it's really hard to get a good view of Everest. And the reason is it's surrounded by very large mountains. One of the few places where you can actually get a view of Everest itself, in the gap between the surrounding giant mountains, is a place called Gokyo Peak. And in 1996 I had gone back to Gokyo Peak and I had climbed it, done some paintings. I'd walked even farther back, climbed up to about 5,600 meters and did a painting there and photographed and walked back in the dark. My headlamp had failed. And I'd come back down to a place called Panga. And I was in Panga. And Panga is about 4,300 meters. And in front of me are two unbelievable mountains. They're awesome in the old-fashioned sense of that word, awesome. They're just unbelievably sheer walls of rock and ice. One is called Cholatse and the other one's called Taboche, or Tawoche. Tawoche is one of the hardest mountains to climb in the world because it's sheer from every side. But I'm sitting down in the valley and I'm climbing it with my eyes. I'm watching. The sun is setting behind me. The earth is rotating away from the sun, and as the mountains come up and break the sun's rays, the shadows are climbing these spectacular cliffs of rock and ice. And I'm sitting there, very quiet, I'm all by myself. And I'm in a really pensive mood, thinking about why I was there, at that particular day, at that particular moment, sitting in that particular spot. And that's the story I want to tell you. It starts several years before. I had gone on a ski mountaineering trip up to a place called Myoko, and I'd met this guy called Kajiwara Tatsuo. Kajiwara Tatsuo, he's your quintessential, he was, unfortunately, your quintessential little big man. He's only about 5 feet 2. But he had a big heart. He loved mountains. He loved life. He was a photographer and a cinematographer. And he was one of the toughest men I've ever met. His body was a combination of really tough rubber and steel wire. Unbelievable. He was a mountaineer, as well as a photographer and cinematographer. You may remember a famous skier named Miura who skied down Mount Everest. Well, Kajiwara Tatsuo didn't go with him to Everest, but he accompanied him on other trips. And this is before these fancy little cameras that you clip to your head, you know, video cameras and with the digital recording stuff. This was in the age of 16 millimeter cameras. And Kajiwara Tatsuo, on skis, holding a 16 millimeter film camera, would ski behind Miura and filmed him as he was booming down the mountains. So now I think I've given you a picture of Kajiwara Tatsuo. He was a shy man. He shied away from being a leader or anything, but he was a very strong person and very much his own man. And as with so many people who love mountains, the love of mountains and the love of light and of making images, still and movie images, it was both a blessing and a curse for him. You know, it gave meaning to his life, but at the same time it made his life very complicated because he had to make a living at it somehow. So anyway, I got to know him. He liked me because, you know, on that trip, on that ski mountaineering trip, and on a couple other trips we went on together later, I was gutsy enough to take not only my normal mountain gear, but also about 15 kilograms worth of painting equipment, you know, like watercolor paper and a burner, a torch, and to dry and to melt the paint when it was freezing. And I'd be out there and I'd be painting sunsets and sunrises, and Kaji-san, I'll call him. Kaji-san, he liked that. He liked that in me, and we became very good friends. In the meantime, I had, starting in 1988, when I started making just about enough money to support my 3 daughters, and finally find a little time to go off to Nepal. I'd taken 2 or 3 trips to Nepal. I'd gone to the Annapurna sanctuary. I had gone twice to the Everest area, to the Kumbh Valley. I climbed a mountain called Imjatse, Island Peaks, about 6,200 meters. Most exciting mountaineering thing I ever did in my life. And it was pretty. That's another story. But anyway, I had some experience in Nepal, and I'd always, as always, I'd taken my painting gear with me. And so about 1992, 93, I think is when I climbed Island Peak. And it was in 95, and out of the blue, in January, I was thinking, gee, I'd like to go back to Nepal. And Kaji-san calls me and he says, hey Brian, you want to go to Everest? I said, yeah, sure. What's the story? And he says, well, you know, back when I was a student at the Shashin Tanki Daigaku, that would be the junior college of photography. I was a member of the mountaineering club there, and I've kept up my contact with those guys. And that group of the old boys, the Obikai as it's called in Japanese, old boys group, there was one woman among them, and also the mountaineering club of Meiji University, they had gotten together, and these are people who love mountains, but who basically led an ordinary Japanese life, which means they didn't get a whole lot of time off. And their dream, as is that of anybody who really loves mountains, is to go see Everest once in their life. So they were all pretty much retired, and they got together and said, let's go. And they said, okay, we'll do it. So they got together, there was 13 of them. Kaji was one of them. He'd spent his life among the mountains. He'd climbed in the Tian Shan Mountains. He'd been to McKinley, he'd been to Nepal. He was the only one who really kept going to the mountains full time. So Kaji-san, he's always looking for a way to make a little money as well from his love, you know, because he has to. He needs we all need to make money. So he thought, man, let's get Brian to come along and I'll do some photography of him as he's painting the mountains, and we'll sell that to one of these mountaineering magazines. And he said, how about that, Brian? I said, yeah, great idea, let's do it. And he said, you'll have plenty of time. These people were in the mountaineering club, but they're old now and they're going to walk really slowly. And you'll have plenty of time to walk ahead and do paintings and, you know, and goof around, and then everybody will catch up. And we'll have a good time together. And I said, sure. So we decided, they had decided to go to the Gokyo Peak, which I mentioned earlier. It's really a spectacular view. From Gokyo Peak, you can see a 7,900 mountain whose name escapes me. You can see Choyu, which is one of the 8,000 meter mountains in the world. You can see Everest. You can see Lhotse, which is the 4th highest mountain in the world. You can see Lhotse Shar, which is the 6th highest mountain in the world. Choyu is number 8 or 9, I believe, and you can see Makalu. And then in the foreground, you can see some really spectacular mountains, including, from a distance, you can see Cholatse and Tawochi. So, we meet in Kathmandu, and we fly into Lukla, which is a really interesting airport. It's the runway's not flat because it's up in the mountains. It's about 2,400 meters. The runway goes up the hill, and when we went there, it still hadn't been paved. And it doesn't matter which way the wind's blowing. When the airplane lands, it lands going uphill. And when it takes off, obviously it takes off going downhill. And like you know, I've done it several times. You're bouncing along this runway, the Lukla runway, bouncing, teeth rattling in your skull, and suddenly you take one last bounce, and the airplane starts to fall off a cliff almost, and then it starts flying. So that's Lukla Airport. And the reason we fly into Lukla instead of Siamboche, which is up at 4,200 meters about, or no, 3,950, excuse me, is that you really have to acclimatize to altitude. You can't fly in high and immediately start walking and expect to get away with it. Okay, anyway, so we flew into Lukla, we walked in, we walked through Nachi Bazaar, and we get up almost near Gokyo Peak. There's a place called Panga, which is where I was sitting when I started the story. And there at Pangat, that morning I felt really great. They were feeling the altitude, but I was born and raised in Peru, so I acclimatized really easily to altitude. And so I was, frisky as a mountain goat. And in fact, that morning, the 8th of November, 1995, I got up early and got permission from the leader of the group to walk ahead. I wanted to paint, and on the way I saw a group of mountain sheep high up, and I saw where they were heading, and I climbed on another ridge and met them, head on, like I was 5 feet away from them. I felt great. And I got to Pangat, where we were going to camp for the night, before the next day going to Gokyo, and the day after finally reaching our goal of Gokyo Peak. And the Sherpas had gone ahead. There was 12 of them, the porters, the cook, the Sirdar, who's the lead Sherpa, basically our guide. And they had gone ahead, set up the tents, they'd made tea, and I was doing a sketch of Amadablan, and it's this glowing beautifully pink in the evening light. The sun is going along a ridge like this, and the ridge is in shadow, and there's a little boy from one of the mountain lodges, and he had on a red hat, and the sunlight was just hitting him. And everything else is in shadow. He was just like a spotlight on this little kid, and then this incredible mountain pink in the distance. I took a picture. I couldn't help it. And immediately, rupee, yes. I didn't want to do it. But one of the Japanese had brought all kinds of gifts for the kids in Nepal, and he had more than he could handle, so he handed me a bunch of stuff, chocolates and things. And so I started chasing these little boys around. There were 3 or 4 of them, actually. And I run around and grab them, pick them up, and give them a chocolate. They loved it. And meanwhile, the Japanese members, they all kind of trudged in, they sat down and drinking tea, and the leader said, "Bra-chan, hayo, kiteo. And enough already, come back, have some tea." And I had one more chocolate, and I saw this kid down there, and I thought, I'll give him one last scare. And I felt great. I jumped about 3 meters down the slope, just scared the shit out of him, excuse my French. And as I landed, I hit a rock, and my foot went like this out from under me, and my body went this way. And to make a long story not so short, I tore the anterior cruciate ligament in my right knee. And I instantly couldn't walk. We were about 10 days walk into the Himalaya. It's not a great place to have a knee injury. But I was totally crippled. There was nothing I could do. Before I even hit the ground, I knew I was in serious trouble. And everybody thought I was still kidding. They said, "Come on, knock it off, come on." And I'm crawling, and I'm thinking, Kaji, I blew it for you, because he was kind of counting on this story. And I'm thinking, all that night, I had a bandage around my leg, and I was cursing myself out in 3 languages, Japanese, English, and Spanish. "You fool, idiota. Expletive deleted, what are you thinking?" The guide, he was about 30, the Japanese guy. There was the Sirdar guy and the Japanese guy. The Japanese guy was able to, with a shortwave radio, contact a climbing team on Amadablan, which is a big mountain I'd taken a photograph on. It's about a 7,000-foot mountain, 7,000-meter mountain. And they had arranged in a relay call to the climbers, to the Everest View Hotel, and down to Kathmandu for a helicopter to come next morning and pick me up and fly me back, evacuate. And then the helicopter came. It had picked up a Frenchman and a Japanese. Both of them were suffering from high altitude mountain sickness, but they're basically hours away from dying. They had to get down fast. And there was me. I was feeling great, except for the right knee. And I was also devastated here. I wasn't going to be able to see Everest with these guys. I'd let down my friend. I got back to Kathmandu. I checked into a hotel. They went to the hospital. They couldn't do anything for me. He said, "Give me a bandage my knee," and gave me a couple of crutches. And that night, in pain, at sunset, I couldn't stand it. On crutches and everything, I hobbled up to under the roof, found a trapdoor, crawled out on the roof. This is a 4-story building, and if I had slipped, I'd have killed myself. I crawled up on the roof and with my binoculars tried to see Everest in the distance. I think maybe that's Everest, and it's glowing pink. That's all. Anyway, I came back down, and that night, around 3 or 4 in the morning, boom! There's this gust of really warm air. It blew the shutters open in my room. And right behind it was the sound of rain. You know, like what's called shuchu go in Japanese, like a very guerrilla rain, just instant heavy rainfall. And I thought, oh no, those poor guys, they're going to go up to Everest. And it's their one day to see Everest from Gokyo Peak. And they won't be able to do it because there'll be snow up there. I didn't think anything else about that. I got on the plane, came back to Japan, called my wife. She was, you know, somewhat critical of my carelessness. She says, what are you thinking? You just think of yourself and fully on, you always make trouble for people. You know, there's nothing I could say except, yeah, you're right. So there was Saturday night, and the 10th of November, and a call comes in. He says, is Brian okay? What do you mean? I'm okay. What are you doing at home? I busted my knee. You know, all these people got killed. I said, in an avalanche. I said, but where we were, there was no snow. It never snows in November there. Yeah, but people got killed on Everest. Well, we were 15 kilometers away. And phone call after phone call keeps coming in. And about the 10th phone call, it's from the trekking company in Tokyo. And the guy says, Brian, you were really lucky. You were really lucky. They had gone to Gokyo, which is below Gokyo Peak, and because they're Japanese and because they follow rules, you know, when you meet bad weather, and that's the rule of mountaineers, if you meet bad weather, you give up and you immediately descend. And if they had stayed in Gokyo, they'd have been okay, but they insisted on coming back down. The Sirdar, the Japanese, the Nepalese Sherpa leader, he was from lowland, from Lukla. He didn't really have much experience with snow. But I actually printed this out. This is a report on storms and avalanche. You know, mountain snow. It's a Sierra Nevada Aquatic Research Lab, and it mentions. You know, I'll pass these around. Anybody who's interested can kind of look at it. And it actually mentions this accident. I found it this morning on the internet. I printed out a few copies. And so I was really lucky. Worst storm in 50 years. 2 meters of snow. And because they followed the rules, they walked back from Gokyo down to Panga. Gokyo is 4,700 meters. Gokyo Peak is 5,300. They walked down. They had a couple of small avalanches on the way. They were properly terrified. It was in their diaries that you saw later. And they were sitting there in this little hollow. The mountain lodges are beyond the hollow on another small ridge out here. And here's a stone hut that Sherpa herders use in the summer. They pasture their yaks in the high mountain pastures. And so they had taken this snow hut, this stone hut, and they were staying there. And they were sitting there in their sleeping bags at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the avalanche came. Now, I don't know if you know it, but an avalanche, a snow avalanche, will travel about 300 kilometers an hour. There's records of avalanches in the Canadian Rockies where these semi-trailer trucks are in a row. The avalanche has blocked the highway, and they're waiting for the snow to be cleared, and another avalanche comes, and the wind from the avalanche takes this truck and blows it about 80 to 100 feet down the mountain. That's how powerful an avalanche is and how fast. So, we had to, the trekking gate company in Tokyo arranged for, they chartered a plane, they got the families together. I was avoiding the media, which had clustered around me, and I didn't want to deal with any sensational-seeking media. And with my knee bandaged and on crutches, I joined the family members. And we went back to Nepal. The bodies had been flown down they were laid out in the gymnasium of the police academy in Kathmandu. And I went there first to identify the bodies before the family members came. As you can imagine, the avalanche had pretty much disfigured. It was really hard to tell who was who. It was amazing, like the guy, the 37-year-old guy, he had been dragged over a rock so fast that his face was sliced open as if it were a medical illustration. You could see the small bones inside his nose. You know, it was sliced that clean from the speed at which he'd been dragged over the rock. And I'm there. I get to the gymnasium, and the media are all there. The caskets are laid out on the stage, and right next to them is like 30 reporters with all these cameras, and they're right up close, ready to get the views of the grieving relatives. And I look at that, and crutches and everything. I lose it. And I start yelling. I said, "You can't do this to these people. Go back, go out. They have to have privacy in this sad moment." I was able to push the reporters to the back of the gymnasium. It was something. Anyway, and then we flew the bodies up to a place where you can see Everest. It's called Namche Bazaar, above Namche Bazaar, and we cremated them there. I came back to Japan, and several months later, I had an operation on my knee, or rebuilt the anterior cruciate ligament, rehabbed like mad, and my goal was to go back and to climb Gokyo Peak for all those guys. All 13 of the Japanese died, 11 Nepalis died, 1 survived. He was a kitchen boy. He was squatted in front of the fireplace, and it was thickly built. It was the only place that the avalanche didn't destroy. So 24 people died. And I went back and I climbed Gokyo Peak and I did the paintings, and I came back down and I was at Tanga, and representatives of the families of the people were going to fly in for a ceremony the next day. So I was there on the 9th, the day before the accident happened. And there was, and I'm bringing you back to where I started this story. I'm sitting there in the wreck of this old stone hut, looking at the shadows climbing there. And, you know, it took me 10 minutes or more to tell this, but it goes through your mind really quickly. I mean, in the space of a minute or less, you can review all of this. And I look up, and the last bit of sunlight is on the peaks of Taoche and Cholatse, and I hear a kind of clucking sound. Stop and look around. And it's astonishing. There are partridges, Himalayan partridges, all around me. They're so close I can reach out and touch them. And they're not scared of me. They're very peaceful. I go, wow, this is really amazing. And I looked, and just for some reason I started counting them. And there's a flock right near me. There were 13. And then I looked, and there's another flock a little further off. And I counted them. There were 11. Now, I don't know about you. Even now, I don't believe in reincarnation. You know, I don't not believe either. I think, you know, that when we die, we're like a drop that goes back into the ocean. We return to the world of infinite possibility. It gets reformulated in a new configuration. But every time I think about that, I remember. Excuse me. I remember those 24 partridges. I don't know what to think. What do you think? Thank you.